Okay, so a similar idea. One, wait for a natural disaster, and then say clearly the gods don't like him any more than we do, so we should overthrow him. Guys, start sharpening each other. Don't make me sharpen you. It makes me feel rude. Sharpen each other. Welcome people saying, yeah, but. So can somebody, yeah, but, any of these good, respectable opinions? Say the gods don't favor him, and so we may as well overthrow him. Can somebody, say, yeah, okay, yeah, but?
Yeah, but it will take, we don't know when natural disasters will occur. It's, occurring, 100 years or, more than that, so you can't really know when the next natural disaster is going to come. They maybe just would get out of the forest,
Jacqueline, right? Danielle has a comment. Yeah, hey, I've got a great way to make things better. Let's destroy the forest that feeds our animals and gives us firewood. I mean, good one, but I'm hearing none of you. Really? So that's all we got in this room? Robert. Loudly, come on.
So we can also get people inside to support him, because the people inside are actually they actually know what's going down inside. That's not particularly good.
When you say people inside, what does that mean?
Inside people. You get an inside job. Yeah. Find somebody that you support, and you get him to become quite good civil agent.
One at a time, and you get them to what?
Become quite good friends with the leader, and then hopefully when his term is done, he will hand it down to him. You can try to work something out so that you have someone that you like.
So you want some guy like this minister of Jeh.
Right.
And you want to get in good with some minister who agrees with you. This guy's a dirtbag, and we do need. Yeah. All right. But the good minister was killed and disheartened. And the other good ministers, when they saw that, they all went and just disappeared into the forest or started farming and said, I quit, right? And truly, this is what the effect of that was, according to the traditional history. Anybody else?
August thought that it could perhaps start a civil conflict between the citizens, because right now everyone believes that he's a true representation of the dynasty, but once the citizens figure out that he's going against some of the traditional values that the ancestors tried to establish, then that might become a good reason to overthrow the government.
What sorts of traditional values is he going against?
Some of the things that Talib tried to promote when he first established the Shang dynasty.
Okay, so, all right, so, So you're saying that he is displeasing the ancestors already?
Yeah.
I have two questions for you that are reminders, really. Your Oracle Bones reading, and I've emphasized this once before, and I'm going to emphasize it again. It said there were two ways to communicate to Deeb via the ancestors. One was the Oracle Bones. What was the other one? That's the Oracle Bone. The other one was sacrifice, which is ceremony, which is ritual, right? And so you're doing sacrifices to the ancestors. You're holding ceremonies for the ancestors. You're honoring the ancestors through sacrifice and ceremony. Here's the big word. It's my favorite word of probably all time because of this 60-month love affair with this subject. The word is ritual. Ritual. And ritual was the second way to please the ancestors, to do it right, to do it well. Look at our descendant. Look how well he is doing the ceremonies. We are proud of him. He knows how to honor people, right? So you're touching on something here that's kind of interesting. He's displeasing the ancestors already. He's a disgrace. The ancestors are looking down and saying, what a disgrace. All right. Here we go. How did the last Shang King, the Pope, get killed? That's an elegant way to... How did he get killed? Ouch. No, that was a rhetorical question, knucklehead. All right. So now we are talking about the Zhou Revolution. Is this guy a Zhou king? Okay, get used to it. I hate it. You hate it. We all hate it. Everybody that writes about it hates it because they have to stop and in parentheses go, his name is Zhou, but he's a Shang king. And who overthrows him? The Zhou. So the Zhou killed Zhou to found the Zhou, right? Right? Just kill me. You get it? Yeah. Okay. Different characters, same sound. Bloody alphabet. Here's how it worked. Actually, to talk about how it worked, we got to do a very quick vocabulary thing, and we've got until 11:20. We're doing pretty well. Very quick vocabulary thing on feudalism. So make a little vocab box somewhere. Ouch! Just to make sure that you know these terms. Is that helping, by the way, the fan? All right. Okay. I'll do this too. Come on. Does anybody in here uncomfortable in terms of temperature? All right, we're okay. All right. Here's the vocabulary of feudalism. Feudalism is a political system. This vocabulary is so basic. Those of you who've had me before, you've heard this spiel. You're going to college. This is useful for Japan. It's useful for Europe. It's useful for ancient China. They're not identical in all these different histories, but they're close enough. So, feudalism. Well, how does the king, the Shang king, here at his capital in Anyang, close to Luoyang, how does he govern the Central Plains? It's a large territory. He's got one city. How does he keep order in all of the other areas? Officials is not the right answer, but thank you. It's a reasonable one, but that's not feudalism. Officials is the opposite of feudalism. Feudal lords. Lords. What's the difference between a lord and an official? There's a basic difference. Make sure you know this. It's just easy. I can't hear you.
Lords are like higher up, yeah.
Any other? Maybe this is maybe that. Thank you. When a lord dies, what happens to? Oh, hold on. No, that's hell. I'm just gonna bang through it. Oh, ouch. Oh, life. Oh, army. Okay, so you've got king. And actually, I'm going to do it on the board. Oh, ow. Whoa. Hello, chicken head. I'm not talking to you, Mats. I'm talking to Manchuria. Okay. If I mess with you, it's because I know you're a comfortable person. If I don't mess with you, I'm not sure about you yet. So here's the king, the monarch. And the king needs to have control over all this area so that his city can't be attacked and overthrown, right? And so how do you do it? You appoint land to lords all over the place. The same thing happened in Europe during the Middle Ages, the medieval period. Same thing happened in Japan at a certain period. So those are all lords. The king gives the lords a piece of land. What is that piece of land called? This is basic vocabulary. Fief. F-I-E-F. So each one of these is a fief. It is land given by the king to a supporter. I'm assuming you know it because you're not writing it. It is land given by the king to a supporter because he knows that supporter is loyal. I give you a fief, and you will govern that fief, but be loyal to me. On the top of the hierarchy, you're the next level down. Now, when this lord dies, what happens to the fief? Very important. Huh? The king always owns it. It's inherited. And that's why it's a lord. Lord is an aristocratic term. It's a title. It means you're aristocracy. What is aristocracy? Inheritance. It stays in the family. So Duke so-and-so, Marquis so-and-so, Duchess so-and-so, you're all aristocrats, meaning the land given by the king stays in your family generation to generation. All right? So a lord is a title of aristocracy. It's not an appointed official because you gave them that land. And their descendants, generation after generation. You die, that land stays yours and your offspring until I say otherwise because you've displeased me. So lords are aristocrats. Aristos means star in Greek. Another word for aristocracy is nobility, same word, or same concept. So aristocrats, nobles, same thing. Another word for fief, especially in European history, is this horrible word. You would try several wrong attempts before you finally came up with this one. How do you pronounce that? Domain. Really? Yeah, welcome to the alphabet. Domain. Word domain. Estates given to aristocrats by the king. Oh, ouch. Thank you. And the other word that we want here is vassal. Because the vassal is the servant of the Lord who is given the fief. So I am the king. You, my vassal, I give this fief. I give you a title, Duke, Earl. What are some other aristocratic titles? I can't even think right now. Marquis, blah, blah, blah. All right. Now, okay, so that's it with our vocab. Now here's where the story gets beautiful. I've done the setup. Now let's have the feast. The Wei River, which I had you learn as part of essential geography, is it part of the Central Plain? It is not part of the Central Plain. The Central Plain is the plain of the Yellow River. The Wei River, is it plain at all? Look at the map. It's an interesting piece of geography. Is this a plain? No, because it's surrounded by mountains north, south, and west. So it is a completely protected and very secure area. There are some little passes through here that become important later, but I won't go into it right now. This was the Zhou fief of the Shang Dynasty. Are you with me? We're coming to the whole point here. And it's cool. The Zhou, the Western Zhou, deserves to be remembered as a golden period. And it all starts in a very surprising place, because these people are not xia, they're not elegant. They're like frontier people. Picture America's colonies and then the Wild West frontier, right? In colonial America, you had like cowboys and Wild West people, right? They weren't considered civilized cowboys who like ruled by the gun out in Tombstone, Arizona, or wherever the hell Tombstone is. They weren't considered cultured people, but they were still part of the culture. In the same way, the Zhou were considered like semi-barbaric. What did they do for the king? They actually traded horses with the nomads up here, and they raised horses, and they gave the horses to the Shang king. So they served that purpose. They were basically cowboys. They were basically cowboys. They were a different tribe. That's my point. Part of the Zhou culture, the Shang culture, but a different tribe. They had been assimilated into it. And word starts spreading during this dirtbag's rule about the Lord of this fief, and his name was One. And people heard about him because he was fair to his people. Taxes were low. Everything that you can picture about a fair ruler, he fulfilled. And word got out. Why is this guy so good and our king so bad? Those of you who study Chinese, that's his name. What does this word mean in Chinese today? I can't hear you. Please speak up. No. It's not long. This is one. Like wen shui. That's literature. Culture. Wen hua, right? Chinese, 中文, yeah. So it means culture. It means pattern. And a pattern is something that is clearly like planned and designed. It's not just some random thing. It's well ordered, right? And culture in the very highest sense of not savage, but cultured. So that's his name, right? And the word comes from this man because he was so cultured. He was so good-hearted towards his people. He could have abused everybody, but he didn't. And so word gets out about this incredibly good man, and some of the lords start saying, look, we've had enough of this guy, especially after he ripped out the heart of his best ministers. Like, it's time to put this one to rest. And so they start coming to One and saying, we will follow you and overthrow this guy. But he said no, because after all, a good man is loyal to his king. I guess he hopes for the best. Look, when Zhou Shen dies, Robert, you're going to stand up if I see your eyes close again. Because that's the army way. It's not punishment. It just keeps you from falling asleep. If you fall asleep standing up, you fall down. It's not, and so you don't fall asleep standing up. Perfect. I guess One thought when Zhou Shen dies, maybe his son will be better. I'm not going to be disloyal. That's dishonorable. So he did not agree to overthrow the king. But his son, Wu, did. In the year 1050, Wu led a revolutionary army from the Zhou fief to Luoyang and took out Zhou Shen. I'm going to tell you something very cool that I learned when I was starting to study Taiji last semester. You've all seen it. What is it? Have I told you this? Oh, I did tell you this. So that's where it comes from. The civil, and his son, Wu, the military, the forceful. I'm strong. I can impose force on you. And so the civilized man, he didn't, but his son did. And so China has ever since then, Wu means martial as in military. So the civilized versus the forceful, the military, the macho, China has always tried to seek a balance, a yin-yang type thing, between the gentle and the strong, right? And we always want this to be uppermost, not to be brutes. So yeah, it literally comes from these two guys. Now, the plot thickens. Zhou Shen, when he sees his army throw down their weapons according to traditional history and join the rebels, he goes into his palace and he lights it on fire and he burns himself alive inside his palace. And Wu sends people in to chop off his head, bring it out on a pike, and show the Shang is over. And everybody applauds, hooray, hooray, the Wicked Witch is dead. But there's a problem here. And I ask you to put yourself in Wu's shoes. Zhou Shen had a son. Are you going to kill that boy? What are the consequences of killing him? And what are the consequences of not killing him? Pros and cons to each. Discuss amongst yourselves. Go. Okay, we got 10 minutes, and I want to get to the end of it. So, loudest and most assertive person. What's the biggest problem with keeping him alive? Dynasty. He's got a claim to the throne, obviously. What's the problem with killing him? There's more than one. I'm sorry, what?
From the great motivation from his supporters.
If you kill him, what, his supporters?
If you kill him, you might anger his supporters.
Anger his supporters. Who else would you anger? The ancestors, and also anybody with a sense of, hello, family, which is God in this culture. Over and over again, Fuxi started family. He's who we remember first. He's our Adam. Why he started family has nothing to do with God. Family is God in this culture. Equivalent to. You're going to, okay, we understand you killing this man, but to kill and end his family line forever, to cut this thing off at the root, that is as close to blasphemy as you can get, right? So, not a good way to start a new dynasty and have a great reputation. Yeah, we like exterminate families. So, what do you think Wu did? You're welcome. What do you think Wu did? Kill him or not kill him? He didn't kill him. Here's what okay, so what are you going to do instead then? Lock him up? Imprison him? Adopt him? All good. Deport him?
Put him in a big palace of your eyes.
I had a student in the last class say castrate him so he can't handle it. I was like, what? But anyway, we'll talk castration in a future lesson because that's always fun. And it's part of history of China. I love it. The three preciouses, there's your preview. The three preciouses, 1, 2, 3. Off with one quick blade. The three preciouses. Okay, anyway, coming back to this. Where were we? They kept him alive. Wen died, remember? So now Wu's alive. Wu has done the revolt, 1050-ish. And Wu has brothers. And so he puts his two older brothers. He's the oldest. That's why he is the one who did the revolution. So, but he put two of his brothers in charge of the Shang prince. And they gave him a fief. They gave the brothers a fief called Song, S-O-N-G. And that was the fief of the Shang family, right? Shang family, right. Let the boy continue his sacrifices to his ancestors. That is proper. That's correct. That's good. After all, Tang was a good man. We don't want to dishonor the entire line because of this dirtbag, so let him continue honoring Tang, right? But then a problem happened. Wu died only 5 years into the Zhou Revolt, all right? So the Western Zhou is only 5 years old, and Wu the Marshal dies. Marshal, M-A-R-T-I-A-L, just so you're not thinking of the other Marshal. By the way, what happened to the Zhou fief? Now we have the Zhou capital, the Western Zhou capital, over here on the Wei River, around Xi'an. So this is now the capital city. So we put two brothers in this little territory, and it's probably like that size, even smaller, called Song, and that's where the Shang prince is allowed to live, overseen by two brothers of Wu. When Wu dies, he has a son. His son's name is Cheng, and he's the next successor. But Cheng is a boy. He's 10 years old, give or take. We've got a 5-year-old dynasty. A lot of the Shang loyalists, life was good under them, for our family. Even though it sucked for most people, right? And so we're still loyal to the Shang. And our powerhouse Wu died, and a boy's on the throne. How are you going to rule? Quickly. How are you going to rule? You going to let a 10-year-old make decisions? No. Ministers, bureaucracy? Nope. The female? Nope. I'm hearing ministers. What else? Brothers. Hello. You already saw it. Who can I trust? My brothers to oversee this prince over here, the Shang. So Wu had another brother, and his name was the Duke of Zhou. Now I've got to speed up here because I don't want to take your lunchtime. And we're almost done, so stay with me, and thank you. I like you guys. The Duke of Zhou is younger than these two brothers. Why did Wu put these two brothers in this really important post of overseeing, of overseeing the Shang prince? Because that was a really important thing. Hello. Yes. No worries. Yes, I do. Okay, I'll tell her. Thanks. Bye-bye. Suben after class, go see Mr. Nyhart. Back to it. These two brothers had a very important... The first crisis was, how do we deal with this kid? Send the two brothers of Wu. The next crisis, oh hell, Wu's dead. And we got a 10-year-old to inherit the throne. What do? The Duke of Zhou steps in. He's younger than these two. He's their brother, but he's younger than them. And he steps in and says, I will become, new vocab word, regent. Regent is an adult who rules for a child king. And when that child reaches adulthood, the regent just steps aside. That's the theory, right? Okay? Does the child have any say? Well, not until the child is a man, right? An adult. And so that's the problem. And so the regent, clearly a delicate thing. The Duke of Zhou steps in and he takes decisive action. I'm in charge. It's not like 3,000 years ago you could shoot an email to your two big brothers hundreds of kilometers away saying, hey, it's okay with you guys if I take charge over here as regent? No, there was no email. There was no time to negotiate this stuff. The two brothers were offended. They were distrustful of him. They thought that he was doing a power grab. And so they actually backed the Shang prince in a counter-revolution against the Duke of Zhou. And the Duke of Zhou was forced to send armies and lead armies because other Shang loyalists started backing these rebel brothers now. And the Duke of Zhou had to amass all of his army and put down this counter-revolution. And in the process, China proper expands. That's that vocab word I told you to learn, China proper. Because he has to conquer more territory than they originally had. That's a minor point. We're seeing China grow, China proper grow. The Zhou is bigger than the Shang. The Duke of Zhou wins. And when King Cheng, 10 years later, is 20 years old, the Duke of Zhou does step aside. And Confucius grew sad in his old age because, as he said, I no longer dream of the Duke of Zhou. Confucius loved the Duke of Zhou. We'll get there next class. There are a couple of last points. Duke, by the way, means brother of the king. You hear that? Duke means brother of the king. That's a very useful thing to know. What's the difference between a duke and a marquis? A duke's the brother of the king. It's an aristocratic title. So when you hear duke, you know, wow, this guy's like literally, sibling of the king. High power. Because these guys are frontier people, this is the most important and beautiful point, and I might need 2 minutes of your time. Because these are a different tribe, they had a different culture and cosmology. They did not worship Shang-Di because they were a different tribe with a different culture. They worshipped, instead, a thing called Tian. Those of you who write Chinese, it's that Tian. And it simply means sky. Give me 2 minutes, I promise you. And it's not a god. It's been described most fascinatingly to me as a natural moral force. Don't start mentally packing. A natural moral force. As if nature itself has, this is a force right here. What's it called? Gravity. It's invisible. Nature has certain weird invisible laws. We see proof of them. Well, the Chinese, the Zhou, not the Shang, not the Xia people. These are like semi-barbarians. They had a notion that the universe itself had a natural moral law. As a child of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which was voted 2 weeks ago the most Bible-minded city in America for 2014, it was in Time Magazine, my hometown, where I just was. I grew up hearing this all the time. How many of you heard it? If you don't believe in God, you can't be moral. You don't know what morality is. You can't be moral if you don't believe in God. Well, you obviously don't know about the Zhou, because they solved that problem. And here's where it gets to me particularly provoking and beautiful, actually, definitely interesting. They said, why do we have the right to kill this guy and end this? Because heaven, Tian, already gave Tang the right to overthrow Jie. And so we are the new good people that heaven sent support to us. I really don't want to use this word mandate of heaven because heaven brings up issues of cross-cultural contamination. We start picturing angels on clouds and our families up there forever and ever with our souls and all that sort of stuff, right? We picture Christian notions of heaven. Please simply think of it as the cosmos. Again, we're back to cosmology. But it's a moral cosmology. The nature itself is moral. And here's my last point. Who does heaven punish when the people are sinful? Does it punish the sinner or does it punish the ruler? That was poorly asked, and I want you to go ahead. So write this last one down, and we'll pick up on it, or maybe you can think about it if you like thinking. Tian punishes the ruler for the sins of the people. Sin is a political problem. It's not a moral problem. If the government is good, the people are good. And that's why heaven cares about politics. Tian cares about politics, not about the individual sinner. Morality is making sure that good government is in place. That's what cosmic morality is. Put a good government in place, because if the government's good, the people won't steal because they won't need to. They won't be violent because the government will teach them that violence is on and on and on, right? This notion. And so notice, China just went from what could have been a Shang-Di sort of theocratic thing, even a monotheism, to an atheism with this revolution. And it will remain for the rest of the time. So the Zhou is hugely important with this whole notion of the mandate and of Tian. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry I kept you over. So we just went from the most perverse and horrible beginning to the most sublime end. I just love this moment in Chinese history. Hold on one second. I've got to... all right, now, who's got makeups that you owe me or else? Quizzes? Yes, you do. So you're going to stay and do that?